welcome to the Squirrel Tale. On today's video, I'm going to be discussing the Ferguson and the Brown Bess. Now that I have replicas of both of them, I want to do just kind of a benchtop discussion. So, here you have... Now first I'll say both these are replicas. This one's a Petrosoli kit. This one's a Track of the Wolf kit. So obviously these are not both originals, So my firing experience in the detailed cosmetics potentially could be not perfect, but it's going to be as close as I can come in. There's only like a handful, 5 or 6 original Fergusons in the world. Maybe even less than that total. So to have an original Ferguson is, only a couple out there, and they're very expensive. And even original Brown Besses, they bring big money, sometimes in the tens of thousands. So neither of these guns is very affordable, the originals. So that's why I have replicas. Now, I'm going to first talk some of the similarities of the rifles. So, when it comes to similarities, they are both flintlocks. They were both used in the American Revolution by the British. They're both British designs. Flintlocks used in, the same era. And they do have some similar features in construction. If you look at the ramrod symbol on this one and this one, they're similar. They both have the swell around there. That's similar. And you can tell that that they're at least made by the same people, more or less. So kind of the basics. The Brown Bess was a standard infantry rifle of the British Army, the standard infantry musket of the British Army from like 1722 into the 1840s. So over 100-year service life. It's a muzzle loader, smoothbore flintlock, 75 caliber. Fires a round ball. The Ferguson is what makes and why the Ferguson is known is it's a first breech loader. Now I have separate videos on the Ferguson, but what you'd do is you'd pull the trigger guard down, put your ball and powder, bring up the screw, and you're ready to prime and ready to fire. So it's a breech loader 65 caliber rifle. So when it comes to history, they're different. When it comes to their history, you couldn't get almost two ends of the spectrum. The Brown Bess is one of the longest served infantry rifles, again, 120 years. There's some other long serving guns, but not many that come close to that, especially being the mainline service rifle. You just don't see that in too many other firearms. There's around 4.3 million made, which, that's probably one of the most produced flintlocks in history, of one design. There was several variations. This is a second model. This would have been the most common model used in the American Revolution by both sides. The Americans used a bunch of these that they captured. So long service life. A lot of them made, in a way, this is a gun that really for the British Empire, it was their go-to guns for 120 years. From some of the major conflicts it was used in would be 7 Years' War, French and Indian War. It would have seen service in the American Revolution, again, by both sides. And then the Napoleonic Wars and War of 1812 in the U.S., it would have been your most common musket used by the British Army, along with hundreds, if not thousands, of other conflicts in the British Empire, whether it was against local forces or other European powers competing for. So again, long service life, very, very well used gun throughout history. The Ferguson, on the other hand, now the story on that is a guy named Patrick Ferguson. He was a captain. I'm not sure if he was the one who personally designed it or if he just liked the idea, but he was the one who was pushing it, and he got it, had it sent it through trials, and around 200 were made in a experimental unit in 1776. Were sent over to the U.S. to kind of try it out. Now, his idea with this is, small unit tactics, kind of the sniper rifle of its day, the way it was used. Now, the only major battle that that unit was used in was the Battle of Brandywine, but being one of the biggest battles of the American Revolution, there was no noticeable effect of the rifle. Like, they weren't able to stand out, which for us Americans, that's probably a good thing. And of course, if you've done research, there's the whole story of how it almost killed Washington, but Ferguson didn't take the shot. I think I talk about that in my other video on the Ferguson. But after that, Captain Ferguson was wounded at the battle and later killed at Kings Mountain. So they disbanded the unit, and the guns kind of faded into history, and again, only a very small number exists today of originals. So that's kind of the story with that. Only 200 made compared to 4.3 million. Now, I'm gonna discuss their advantages and disadvantages and the way they're intended to be used. I will start with the advantages the Ferguson has over the Brown Bess. So the Ferguson has quite a few advantages. Some of the first ones deal with having rifling. Just being a rifle gave it an advantage. It is a significantly more accurate gun than the Brown Bess. Now, from me shooting it, now I fired that a good bit more, but even my first shots, I was able to hold groups easily at paper at 50 yards. The Brown Bess, my experience in my first shots were I was having trouble hitting like 18 by 24 foot target at 20 yards. Blue, Daisy, hush. Sorry, the puppies are playing. But yes, that could be me. But regardless, with the rifling, you're gonna have a more accurate gun. Now, the other big advantage of it would be it's a breech loader. And that was revolutionary at the time. Today we take breech loaders for granted because that's what most of our guns are. But now most people think, oh, that must make it way quicker. And what I would say when it comes to speed is the other rifles at the time would have been things like the American long rifle, which I have one here. Long barreled, still muzzle loading, but they were very long barreled guns. So they took way longer than your silver musket to load. But the advantage of that was just the accuracy. The Ferguson, being a breech loader, you probably can get a few more shots than the Brown Bess, but not major, but you could at least keep up with it and a little more. And the other big advantage was, and you can see in the video of me shooting it, is you can fire behind cover. You see me behind that block of wood. And that's kind of the intention was, while the Brown Bess was your everyday, your common man's rifle, or your common man's musket, the idea was with the Ferguson is you would be putting people behind rocks and stuff, and they would, again, kind of be like your sniper, taking out strategic targets, things like that. The sights on it, that's probably the other thing when it comes to accuracy, is not only is it rifled, but the sights are way better than the Brown Bess. You can see you have a flip-up notch sight. If you're used to like 22s and stuff, that style of sight is still used. You know, easy to actually know where you're pointing at. The Brown Bess, it has a bayonet lug that you, and that's why I was having trouble hitting that target, probably more to do with the sights and the lack of rifling. You have that square lug. If you're trying to make an accurate shot, you're kind of trying to line that up. And then a lot more difficult to make a precise, accurate shot. So now the advantages of the Brown Bess were you could still get a fairly rapid fire. Again, not greater than that, but still very rapid. And I guess this gets into the disadvantage of the Ferguson, I guess. The main one, the biggest one, was the manufacturing cost. You have to rifle the barrel. That's an extra step. Making that screw. Now, I'm a machinist by trade with CNC machines and stuff like that. I've talked and looked into multiple times making that even with CNC equipment. And it's a very, very difficult to do with CNCs. You'd almost probably have to order some custom tool bits and get some custom tooling made. Like your common tooling, you couldn't do it. And it would be a challenge because it's just the way that thread is. It's a multi-lead thread, very quick. You see, one turn, you're dropping over an inch in one turn. So again, very fast. And that's because it has 11 starts. If you see that, you basically have 11 grooves for the thread compared to a normal one, which is 1. And it's also a tapered thread. So that is where the manufacturing cost would be through the roof. I'm sorry about the dogs in the background. It happens. The other probably big disadvantage is in this wrist area. It is a lot weaker than on the Brown Bess. The wrist area is a little bit, well, you don't have that screw going through there, so you have a little bit more wood in that area, making that more strong. So if you were forced into hand-to-hand bayonet combat, which both the Ferguson has a bayonet, I just don't have it. I think I can get them through the rifle shoppy. Maybe someday I'll try to get one, but with the bayonet, you're not. If you were using the bayonet, this might crack, and they had some crack even just from shooting. The Brown Bess was a very rugged design. If you had to use it as a club, that was okay. Brown Bess was cheaper, and one of the big things with this, it might be mechanically and practically more accurate, but if you're not training your troops to utilize that, there's no point. With the Brown Bess, your guys were given minimum marksman training. If any true marksman training, they would have been drilled on firing. But with the volley fire, Napoleonic tactics, it was a very effective firearm. That was one of the things with the small unit that Ferguson had. All those guys were vigorously trained to be most effective. So that brings up a question. Could the Ferguson have been successful if it wasn't for the circumstances that happened in history? Obviously, as an American, we might be glad that there wasn't more of them used. But to my answer, I think despite the cost, these two were never meant to go up against each other. It wasn't like, oh, should we adopt the Ferguson to replace the Brown Bess? Ferguson was intended for small unit tactics. And I do think, had it been utilized more, it could have been effective. It's a very accurate and fast loading, but sometimes militaries they prefer proven technology, which makes sense. And when the test went wrong, and you have a war going on, they shortly started losing after its usage. Playing with new guns isn't your priority, and that's the good thing for the Americans. But they're both very interesting pieces. I'm lucky to have one of both. The Brown Besses, you can get them. They're relatively available, the replicas. The Fergusons, you can get them through Rifle Shoppy. They are a smaller company. Their availability, I haven't looked it up recently, but they are a little harder to get. These ones, you can get them through Dixie Gunworks, and there's even a couple other replicas out there, so. No, I hope you enjoyed this video. And please like and subscribe. I will be doing a lot more shooting with this in the next couple months, and I might bring that out to the range again, maybe do a live fire comparison of the two, which could be fun. So, have a good day. Please like and subscribe, and thank you. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe for more great content, and check out our Instagram page at @SquirrelTailShow.